Hi guys, welcome back to Hanging Out with Lori. I am glad you're here. Today we are doing another series of looks. This time we are using the So Jaded palette, which is a collaboration between Kathleen Lights and Colourpop. This is what the palette looks like. It is beautiful. It has all these gorgeous jewel tones. And I am going to create 7 looks using this palette. I will be using all of the shadows. I will not be using the glitter that is in this palette, which is this shade right here called Topaz, and this one as well, which is Opal. So Topaz and Opal I won't be using. The rest I will be doing looks with. It was requested by Leah, one of my subscribers, that I do a look using the So Jaded palette, and I decided, since I've started this series of doing multiple looks using one palette, I would do 7 looks using the So Jaded palette, which, since she had requested it. And I'm grateful to her for making that request from me, because that helps me, put content out there that you want to see, that you are interested in. So this is my first look for my 7 looks with the So Jaded palette. So I hope you enjoy this. Please leave any comments down below of palettes you would like to see me use in the future. And I would love to have your thoughts, your feelings about the looks. So if you're interested in the 7 looks I created with the So Jaded palette, please keep watching. Welcome back everyone. For my first look using the Colourpop So Jaded palette, we will be taking the shade My Precious, which is described as a pale peach matte shade, and setting the primer. Next is Geodude, which is described as a mid-tone neutral yellow brown matte shade, and I am putting it into my transition and taking it pretty high onto my brow bone. Next is the beautiful burnt terracotta matte shade called You're a Gem. I am putting this into my crease, slightly onto my transition onto Geodude, but not taking it as far up, but just warming up that crease and lower transition area. Using a shader brush, I take Carnelian, which is described as a burnt orange matte shade, and I pack it onto the outer V and slightly into my crease. After getting Carnelian a little too far over on my lid, I decided to pack it completely onto my full eyelid, and I'm okay with that. Carnelian is a beautiful matte shade. After putting Carnelian all over my lid instead of in the outer V, I decided to take the shade Jade, which is an olive green matte shade, and put it in my outer V. Hindsight, it wasn't the best move, but it was done. I went back into My Precious, the pale peach matte shade, and dusted it on my brow bone. I did go back into Jade to build it back up on the outer third of my lid because I noticed it was fading. I took some of Jade and put it into my crease as well. I then took Peridot, a beautiful bright chartreuse metallic shade, and tapped it on the inner half of my lid. Then I took You're a Gem, that beautiful burnt terracotta, and placed it between Jade and Peridot just to give a bridge between that olive green matte shade and that beautiful bright chartreuse. For my inner corner, I took the shade Diamond, which is described as an icy champagne with blue reflect, and then took Carnelian and dusted it on my lower lash line. Starting off our second look is the pale peach matte shade called My Precious. I am just using that to set my primer. Next we will be taking Royal Jewels, which is a beautiful neutral peach matte shade. I will be placing this in my into my transition and building it up so it's much darker than what it is going on at the beginning. And I will be taking Royal Jewels almost to my brow bone, so it will be covering the majority of my upper lid. Next up is Ametrine, which is a dusty mauve purple with golden flecks in this matte shade. I am putting it into my crease and lightly up onto my transition, but I am not going up as high with Ametrine as I did with Royal Jewels. And yes, I did finally put my hair up because it was driving me batty. It probably was driving you batty as well. I continue to build up that Ametrine, and I am not taking Ametrine in very far in my crease. I'm going about halfway, which is unusual for me. Next is Fluorite, which is an icy lavender shimmer with a pale green flip to it. I am putting this shadow on my whole lid, and I just think it is one of the standout shades of the So Jaded palette. My Precious is back in play, probably getting the most use out of any color in this palette, and I am dusting it on my brow bone and along the edges just to soften them up. Garnet is now being packed on the outer portion of my lower lid and just a little bit into my crease, and I will be packing Garnet, which is described as a garnet red. It is a matte shade. I will be packing it up so it shows almost more purple than red in my opinion, once it starts to get quite dark. Very pretty, but not quite what I was expecting. Alexandrite is being tapped between the fluorite and the garnet shade just to kind of blend out the seams. And then I will take sapphire and put it in my outer V, not covering up garnet, but giving a little bit of extra dimension. I did take sapphire and dust it on my under eye. Ametrine then was placed a little over sapphire and about 3/4 of the length of my eye, with pearl in my inner corner and my precious hooking ametrine and pearl. Look 3. I'm going to take the shade Royal Jewels and put it into my transition increase. I moved into Citrine completely by accident. I picked up the wrong shade, and I have put it into my crease and transition as well, blowing it out. Not quite the direction I was going to go with this look, but it is now. I'm taking Smoky Quartz and putting it all over my lid. I'm taking Tiger Eye and putting it on the outer third or outer half of my lid. Jasper is going just on the outside V. I then take my Precious and dust it on my brow bone and on the upper part of my eye to soften up any edges. My Precious and set the upper part of my lid where there is primer. I'm not setting my lower lid, I just want to keep that a sticky base. I am going to take Diamond and put it all over my lid. I'm taking Rose Quartz and putting it onto my transition and into my crease. I'm going to take Ruby, and I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do. I am going to take Ruby and put it all over my lower lid. Then I'm taking Diamond and putting it on top of Ruby. Yes, that's exactly what I'm doing. Much better. Sunstone in my inner corner. I then took Alexandrite and put it on my lower lash line, Rose Quartz on the last 2/3 of my lower lash line. Alright, we are on to look 5 and we are starting off with Geodude in my transition. Finally going to dip into Stoned, which is described as a cool deep brown, and I am working it into my transition. Next, I'm packing Amethyst onto my lid, about 2/3 of my lid. It's hard to say, 2/3, a half, something like that. Followed by Aquamarine on the inner portion of my lid, then taking Amethyst again and putting it in between the two shades to soften up any edges there might be. I use Ametrine to soften up any edges I might have on my transition. Then I take Onyx and align my lash line, just being very careful because this is a black matte with some micro sparklies bits in there. Pearl in my inner corner and on my brow bone, rose quartz on my lower lash line to create this beautiful purpley blue, just watery look. This is one of my favorites. Our second to last look, we are starting off with Royal Jewels on my transition, and I am just really building up Royal Jewels mostly on the outer portion of my transition with a little pulled in, mostly into my crease, but it's mostly on that outer portion of my transition. Then take Carnelian, one of my favorite shades in this palette, and I pack it onto outer V. With Sunstone placed onto the rest of my lid. I then go back into Carnelian just to soften up the line between Carnelian and Sunstone. I then take Emerald and put it over Carnelian just to give it a little bit of depth. Building Sunstone back up in my inside lid, and Sunstone is described as a fiery orangey gold. My Precious on my brow bone. And excuse my lips moving, my mother called while I was filming this look, so ignore whatever we were talking about. I have no clue. Pearl was put in my inner corner for this this pretty simple look. Look 7, final look. We start off with emerald packed onto my lid. I then take my precious and use it to set my primer because I had not done so prior to. Then I took You're a Gem and then Carnelian and worked it into my transition. I put Pearl on my inner corner and pulled it up onto my lid to open up my eye. I dusted You're a Gem on my lower lash line with Carnelian just on the outside portion of my lower lash line to hook it with the top. And then life happened. Man, was I upset. Alright guys, so this is my final look using the Colourpop and Kathleen Lights collab. This is the So Jaded palette and very dramatic look. I used every single shade in this palette except for the two glitters here. We have Opal and Topaz. So those two I didn't use. All of the rest of them I did use at least once, if not more than once. I really enjoyed this palette. I enjoyed it a lot. I was going to put this in as a topper over emerald today, but I decided not to. I thought I would leave well enough alone because when I put this shimmer shade on my brow bone, I then just went over with a clean brush and to buff out the edges, and some green had transferred from my lid up onto the upper part, and I didn't notice it until I pulled it all the way across. So I had to do some serious damage control, and I thought, no, I'm done. I'm done. So this look is darker than planned, but that's why. It's because that green dragged on me. And yep, there's nothing I could do after that. So this is the final look. I was able to create 7 different looks using this palette, and if memory serves me, this is definitely the darkest look that I created, but I do like it. It's in camera, it is really, really intense and dark. In person, it's not so much. Would I wear this out during the day? Probably not, but date night, maybe I might. So yeah, and if my hair was down, it probably wouldn't look as intense either, but yeah, this is my final look. My thoughts on the So Jaded palette, really good. There were a couple of eyeshadows that I had a harder time utilizing, and I don't think it had anything to do with the shadows themselves, it was trying to incorporate them in with other eyeshadows here. All of these darker, these three right here and these two right here, I had a heck of a time with them, incorporating them in with the other shades of this palette. That is probably just because I don't have the skill set for it. But today I was like, it's now or never. So when that snafu happened with the green, yeah. I do like this look. It is very dark, much darker. But you tell me, what is your favorite look that I created by the So Jaded palette? Do you have the So Jaded palette? Do you find that those darker shades are more temperamental, or is it just a Lori thing? I personally think it's a Lori thing, but that's just me. So let me know your thoughts on this. This was the second installment of my so many looks using one palette, and I really enjoy doing this. I am slow at it only because I don't wear makeup every day. So the next one, I will not be doing 7 looks. I'll only be doing 3 looks. So that one should come a little faster than this one did. But I really liked this palette, and I really enjoyed a lot of the looks I created. This just isn't my favorite one, but I think it's better than a couple of others. So yeah, that's it, guys. I hope you are enjoying this series. I know this is only the second one. If you have any palettes you want to suggest, just leave them down in the comments. I do have a palette coming that was requested by one of you, so it isn't this upcoming one, it's the following one, so number 4 in this series. So that's it. I thank you for being here. I thank you for watching. If you have this palette, I hope this has encouraged you to go pull out your So Jaded palette, because it truly is beautiful with all of these jewel tones in there. So please take good care, be safe, be smart, and I will talk to you on the next one. Bye.